Oh, shit. I forgot to pregame. All right, I'll be fine.
What's up, everyone? We are at it again. Welcome back. This is the Best in Slot Radio Podcast, a podcast focused on Final Fantasy XIV, its game design and features, as well as how it stacks up against other games on the market. Now, I'm going to be DTG. With me, as always, are my two guys, Ez and Nox. Let's say hi.
What's up, homies?
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
And so, this is going to be episode number 8. It's going to be part 2 of our recap of Endwalker. We're going to go through the MSQ, everything it encompasses. And then, just like last time, this is your warning. There are going to be spoilers. High spoiler alerts.
Spoiler alert.
You need to protect yourself. I got a message from someone who was like, I didn't know that you had spoilers. And at first I thought he was trolling me. And then he was like, nah, man, like I must have missed that part. This is your time. This is your time.
So many warnings.
You've been warned yet again. Here we go.
This is your last warning. Spoilers are ahead as of now.
For everything. Up to the
exactly.
end.
Up to the end, exactly. So where we left off in last episode, we finished up with
Walker, dare I say?
Ooh, there it is. We ended up killing Zodiark, and we ended up moving towards back to the Watcher. We goofed, we made mistakes.
At the end.
Fandaniel was pretty stoked.
That none of us knew. Not killing Zodiark was actually the final piece to actually start the final days. And I literally sat there at the end of that cutscene like, oh my god, it's literally emotional. Did play ourselves. Like,
well, it shows you the depth a little bit of Fandaniel's character and just how smart that guy is. Like, he goaded us into killing.
That. You are absolutely correct.
Yeah.
My prediction statements and the prediction episode may have painted a different light of myself and Fandaniel. But seriously, he is a far deeper character than I gave credit for, and I really do want to set the record straight on that, you know.
Absolutely, and like you said, there's a couple things I'll bring up later on in the episode that tie directly into that. So, what happens after we kill Zodiark? We talk to the Watcher, we bring the homies to the moon, and then the Watcher points us
to the moon, gentlemen, to the fucking moon.
So, obviously most of the community thought, okay, moon's where we're going to end it. It's called Endwalker. I get it. Bunnies, we knew were coming. We just didn't know how. I was not only not expecting this, but just not really ready for it.
I love
them to be the shepherds of the end, if you will.
Right.
And them to be the custodians of all this passed down knowledge. Mm-hmm. Literally the embodiment of the word, the tradition of word. Holy shit. And then it was housed in a little space bunny.
And that blew my mind because they even said this. They were like, it's Heidelin's choice for us to look this way so we're easier for you to understand what's happening. Mm-hmm. What? Little bunny people is how we're going to do this?
I love it.
And that's the tie that binds. That literally made me sit there for a second fucking bunnies are... The boiled down communicative physical representation of harmony. What?
Yeah, not what I was expecting. Who's your favorite one?
Oh, Lighting Way.
Pudding Way's your favorite. Okay.
Pudding Way.
Lighting Way because so this is kind of like a gaming moniker that I had for quite some time. Okay. Where it started off as Lightning Horn in World of Warcraft. Okay. And then that actually evolved into Light the Way, which was actually my Death Knight in World of Warcraft. And that was actually the name that stuck with me for so long. And I mean,
wait. I thought we were Lighting Way. That's a title we get.
Yeah.
Hold on. Yeah. That's a person, but yes, that's a bunny, but yeah, it's also a title. But yes, that was super deep to me, and I'm man, I've always been Light the Way, as my gaming moniker, so of course Lighting Way.
It hit.
I'm a smooth brain nerd, and I liked Pudding Way.
That's interesting.
Okay, his comic relief was on point though. Fucking Pudding Way.
Pudding Way was pretty good for
perfect.
I mean, I just love the humor they injected into all the Loperettes.
I love Urianger is like, I'm going to have to use some pixie magic to wipe your memory soon.
Yeah.
But
Mine is Cooking Way, and even though this doesn't happen right away, his little story arc in the Labyrinthos area when he's trying out the vegetation for the first time. As a former chef, it's hysterical to me to just watch somebody discover something like that. Just because I know what this shit tastes like.
what do you mean there's more than carrots?
Yeah, or the fucking lemon part where they're like, "Oh my god, this is the worst thing I've ever tasted," and then they give him a lemon muffin, and he's like, "Oh shit, I'm fucked." You know, it's just funny. So, but I think lore implication wise, when you think about MSQ and where we are on the Loporrits, it's crazy to me how far back the plan goes. Like Heidelin had such a crazy arc. I still don't understand, like, definitively how long in the 6,000 years that they had to get started, how long were they asleep for in total? Because I don't understand it all based on the story.
I don't mean to open up another can of worms to think of, but like that like timeline or chronology gave like kind of set off a rabbit hole. Like what was before these Asians that we knew them? You know, Hythlodaeus, actual Hades, Vanna, and all that. Like, what was the actual intelligent and predominant species before them? It wasn't just them, right?
Exactly. So that it was very interesting. I think the long-term implications that Heidelin kind of brought to the table, especially with the Loporrits, I think one of the most, like I've talked to people, one of the funniest things to me is the housing, which, let's not go on a tangent. Is that the next housing zone or not?
No, fuck no. God, I hope not.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence. Like,
so
I really think it actually is.
I
think it's going to be like a high sci-fi literal apartment complex.
Yep, that's exactly what I think.
Or it's going to be a high sci-fi, kind of like the last stage that we saw at Ultima Thule.
Okay, yeah.
Well, if you're going to be like a housing district like that, or it's going to be an apartment complex like what we see in the moon right now, in Mara right now.
Well, if you do the Loporrits level 90 dungeon, you see the housing they have built inside of the moon.
That's exactly that's what sparked that thought. I'm like, they already have the fucking models for the apartments. Like, let's go.
I honestly, of all dungeons, that may be my least favorite. Like,
really,
it physically hurts my brain going through there and watching this shit twist and move around me while I'm like going through the dungeon, and I like
Inception.
Yeah, the first I fucking hate Inception.
What?
All right, man, you need to watch your mouth.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's a bad movie.
One of the greatest movies of all time.
It's not a hot take. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it gave me a headache. All right.
Inception is great.
Don't
listen to E.
Fuck you. Look. All I'm saying is gave me a headache, and I'm like not a fan.
Fair. Okay, so we figure out Heidelin's plans. I thought it did get a little weird when the Loporrits basically try to mug us and knock us out.
Well,
I get it.
That, like, well, actually, it might have been in tandem. Now that I think about it, when they started to like do some funky shit with Urianger.
Yeah,
like that was like if I'm not mistaken, like the cutscene either before or right after they started being like kind of secretive with us.
Weird, yeah,
and that's when I was just like, okay, what the fuck is going on? Sure. And then that cutscene with Urianger and the bunny people, and we're just like, oh, okay, they see him as more of a shepherd than like actually trying to be like, you know, a guide to Atheris, as we knew it as Azora, as Ezra, but Azora. There we go. Now I'm
Eorzea.
Eorzea. See, I got Atheris down, but now I forgot like what we used to know it as. Go figure. But yeah, like, and how they saw him as like kind of like a root, you know, like as in like we can trust your judgment on this. Like that was. Oh shit! Okay, that kind of like put things in a different perspective for me.
Well, and they said it in one of the cutscenes. The main one, Living Way, was like, "You talk to us directly," and just like how his delivery style, he doesn't lie, he's very pointed but not in a sarcastic manner. And so they were like, we just need someone to spit it to us straight. Immediately in my head I go, that's the Charlians. That's how I knew that they were involved. I was like, that's got to be them. And
I mean,
it's obvious, but it's not that obvious.
It took a little bit at that point because I questioned myself from there to say, wait a second, you're saying straight to the point, you're saying plain as day. Urianger does not speak plain as day and does not speak straight to the point.
Well, I think
Charlians on the other hand,
Dead
specifically all of our interaction at that point for Fortuno, Alphino and Alize's dad. Yeah, it was exactly that, straight to the point.
I mean, I
all
think
the
that
details we need, all the info to move forward.
True.
What they were really getting at is like Urianger was the only one taking them seriously.
Yeah, that's fair.
Thancred, and Y'shtola walk in there and we're like, these are a bunch of tiny, foot-tall fucking bunny people.
Yeah, what is up with this?
What do you mean you're the heralds to save us all?
Yeah.
And we're like investigating them, whereas Urianger is genuinely trying to have a conversation with them. And
that's fair.
Well, in that same extent, we're investigating their intentions, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's investigating their lifestyle.
Yeah.
That was the difference that I didn't catch until later on. That's why they actually invested in them as they did, to be like his emissary, quote unquote, to be like he's the one to actually go back for us and actually give us our information that we need from there.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. It's very interesting. I think Urianger's character really, that was one of my favorite story arcs of the entire expansion. And we'll talk about why, the culminating moment when we get to it in a little bit. But after we get done with the moon and we're not abducted and who knows what, we head back to Thavner, and I really, really liked the Thavner's second quest line.
I just want to point out before we jump to that,
Yeah.
and how they, as in the Final Fantasy team, cinematically relayed that shit was hitting the fan.
Yeah.
Like on my notes, I made a really big point to say the map blot and how things were like literally like darkness spreading out, and it was literally a point of corruption spreading out and whatnot. And I literally just sat there to myself like, what the fuck? And that was a really big point for me in the story as a whole.
Yeah. No, they laid out so much for us. It was very interesting. I thought that plot line, especially with Vitra, and then we get to see our boy Graha just be an absolute tear.
Oh, dude, that was amazing.
So nice.
But before that, oh man, I got to throw it out there.
Yeah.
I made a note before. I didn't want to bring it up before, but I wanted to mention it now. When Anawan dies. Like,
oh yeah.
Oh, dude. Okay, so I put a note
one.
earlier on where I was like, "Oh man, my boy Anawan. Like this guy is gonna be the man, the myth, the legend."
Yeah.
And in our episode 1, that's why I didn't bring it up because he got built up, and he was built up really well, right?
Yeah, he had a great story arc.
Mm-hmm. And how they ended it, I wouldn't change it. I would not, but it still hits me to like, damn, like that.
I really like that they committed
potential.
to the idea of Shadowbringers was dark, but Endwalker incorporates the final days, and we need to go up a notch.
Yeah,
like
agreed.
watching the little kid get turned into a monster and then immediately squished in front of his dad.
Oh, dude, that was so nuts.
Let's take that back a step. What about the whole family of Arc?
Yeah,
I'm gonna butcher
the
their
ones
name.
we chose.
I don't
Like,
know if you guys saw this, but there was like someone posting about how they had wished there was some kind of warning before the dungeon because that really fucked her up. Like watching them in the dungeon all turn into those things one by one.
Yeah, that was
like
when the mom turns and then the 3 kids turn.
Yeah, that was brutal. Man.
Honestly, so I didn't know this. I saw this on Reddit, and I unfortunately don't have the thread anymore. Before we ever get to the dungeon, we have Matsya, who has the family that we kind of chase around because they helped him when he was in need. So he wanted to make sure, and they had a baby. And so somebody posted this on Reddit. I guess Matsya, or however it's pronounced, excuse me if it's very off. It's the avatar for fish. And he's a fishmonger, which I thought was such a crazy connection. And apparently, and I haven't been able to find it just yet, but apparently he symbolizes like turning into fish and protecting villagers, and they kind of portrayed him as a protector of Palakistan when we were first introduced to him. Huh. So like this is a whole different little like rabbit hole I went down, but that's how deep Square Enix went. Like they literally went that far.
I guess I don't know how far I'm jumping, but you brought it up there. His run as he was starting to change, as the baby was starting, dude, that fucking hit me. Like seriously,
they threw the baby in the water. Jesus Christ,
dude! Like, don't even get me started. As he's panicking, as he's changing, and then he notices the baby changing, and then what does he do? He actually gains control of himself. Like that was fucking. That's some storytelling right there. Like seriously.
Well, why does he gain control of himself?
Because he knows he needs to protect another.
No, Vitra and Nestinian jump down.
Our boy.
That's right. I forgot all about that shit. They
kill both of them. Yeah, and he immediately gets reinvigorated because he sees the dragon. He sees Vitra, and he just like he's so like full of pride and courage at the moment, which is really, really cool. Like that, like I said, that second storyline was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. And then, we touched on the dungeon, the mom changing with the kids changing is pretty rough. But I really like that dungeon. I actually think it's pretty good boss designs for what they had.
But one thing I do want to point out before we move further is Vitra's growth towards Estinian.
Yeah, agreed.
Estinian already acknowledged him as a potential ally, knowingly that he's a former adversary, right?
Right.
Vitra acknowledged him as a compatriot of sorts, right? But he didn't actually see him as a companion.
Right,
to start.
Not yet.
Yeah, but dude, when he was like, "All right, hop on, bitch," like, oh man, I got goosebumps. Like that.
Well, I like how Asinian basically was like, "This is what I do, dude. Just shut up and let it happen." Yeah. I was like, "Oh, that's great." He's another storyline that I was like, "This is so well done." Like, holy shit, they did such a good job. But then that brings us. We already kind of touched on the Rods at Han battle, and then Fortuno comes in, announces the final days. Realize Vitra is the one who's been running Rods at Han for so long, that's a pretty big twist. Excuse my burp. That's a pretty big twist. If you're from Fortuno's standpoint, where you've had commerce with this other like neutral nation, because you're perceived as a neutral nation as well, and all of a sudden you realize the leader has been a dragon for however long Dabner's been a thing. Like that's pretty deep. I really like that for kind of a redemption, especially since we know the ultimate for this expansion is going to be the Dragon Song War. So I'm like I'm really excited to see if any new lore stuff comes from what happens with Vitra, or we learn about Vitra more through that fight and who they used to be.
Well, I don't want to go into it too deep, but later on, we do learn, like, inadvertently, more or less. They don't specifically say a lot about Midgard-Sommer or even Nidhogg in that manner, but what we're meant to perceive, based on what the fuck else has happened, Midgard-Sommer and Nidhogg were a lot more benevolent than we actually ever perceived them to be. Like, specifically Nidhogg. Like, first of all, I'm just going to throw this out there now. He was pissed when he got here because all the other shit he saw.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Like, nothing about what happened here, right?
Yeah.
He got here to a point where he can actually maintain his brood and whatnot, and he maintained that, like, vehemence and rage, if you will, to protect them from what else was out there.
Right. Because he had already seen so much shit.
What do you mean by that?
The fact that he was one of the original dragon broods that were still traveling through space, that actually had the will to keep carrying on.
Oh, he wasn't hatched by then.
Like, no, he was one of the people who brought the eggs.
Yeah, he was one of the originals.
They talked about his Ultima.
It was Midgard-Sommer.
Yeah, and
Midgard-Sommer is a kid of Nidhogg.
No, Midgard-Sommer is the first dragon, the big guy. And then he brought a clutch of eggs, and that became the first brood, which is Nidhogg, Vitra.
Oh, I mixed it up. Yep, Midgard-Sommer. Yep, my bad. I mixed up Nidhogg and Midgard-Sommer. That you can crucify me in the comments.
That's fine.
I got you.
I think I was on that
dragons.
too. No, I was on it too because I was mixing up I forgot that Nidhogg and
Midgard Stormer came here with Omega and had like a huge fuck you 1-on-1 and almost lost. But yeah, no, it's
dude, way to bring in Omega into that too. Like, man, do the Omicrons really I guess humanize Omega and our interaction back with it? Like, wow.
Yeah, but we'll definitely get into them later. Wink.
Wink. Yeah, that's true. That'll be on the next one. So, okay, that pretty much does it for Act 1 of the episode, if you will. We'll move on to Act 2, where we are basically requested by the Scions to go back to the first.
Yep.
And see if we can figure anything out. And I'm really happy they brought
Lena
in.
So we're sitting in Thavnair.
Elpis?
Yeah, we're sitting in Thavnair, and all of the Scions are kind of like, what the fuck do we do? No one knows about the end of the days.
Yeah.
Who do we talk to about that?
Confused.
We killed the Ascians, and then, Graha, our boy, our homie, is like, we still have one.
Right.
Yeah.
He's like...
So, before we shift and jump over to that, there's 2 big points that I wanted to talk about here.
Yeah.
One thing, the Elpis flower disintegrating in our hands.
Gets Thanos
up on the moon. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that... I just got goosebumps from it,
sorry.
and the implications of it, and we didn't know what the hell was going on with it. Granted, later on when we understand what the flower is, so to speak, I'll come back to this point. But yeah, it's interesting and it does make more sense. But that definitely made me kind of
the sheer amount of despair it took to
break that flower.
Just a flower.
Yep. Well, see, that's the thing I didn't understand at that point that's what was causing it. Mm-hmm. That level and depth of despair. Because when we go full circle and actually look at, I don't want to get too much into it, but the opposite ends of what we see from the flower, it's pretty wild when you kind of actually you don't know what its capabilities and what its actual conduit aspects are. Right. And they drop that right there. This shit just melted in our hands based on what the hell is going on. What do you mean? This was supposed to be our physical hope. What?
Right. This was supposed to get us out.
The other point that I wanted to mention from that, building on from there, was granted, the other Scions weren't there when that happened. That was a mano-a-mano type deal, right? We saw that we had to deal with that as the Warrior of Light, right? But coming back to the forum and then the Scions actually accepting that this is the quote-unquote final chapter, yep.
Yeah,
let's do this. This is what
That's
we need
big.
to do. That really kind of brought it full, not really full circle, but it really kind of lined up the views, where it was just damn, I got the magnitude that was just going down right here, and you guys get that this is it,
When it was, I really liked that they allowed Graha to kind of pull on his past knowledge to be able to understand that there was someone we could talk to when they sent us, essentially, or sent the Warrior of Light to the first, because that they had it in the Crystal Tower. We locked someone away. Look at all this. It just incorporated that land again and made us reconnect the feelings we already had, because we essentially didn't see the first the entire time, and then all of a sudden it's hey, time to go back. And we check in with everyone and see how everyone's doing, and they have no idea the problems that are going on. For all they know, they could disappear in a blink of an eye.
Well, we saw a shell of the first, you know? We saw the first in absolute dire crisis, right? So going back there now and actually seeing them picking up the pieces type deal and actually having a standardized, for lack of a better term, way of life. Yeah, that was really big.
Awesome.
Yeah. That was damn. It was kind of one of those unsung notes in the story, but it was it definitely made you feel that your impact of literally just the last expansion, right, Shadowbringers, had lasting impact.
Yeah.
That was a good thing. Yeah. I took that away. Okay, we're stopping the end of everything, but it was nice to know that we helped this world,
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I hope that they go into more depth now that we've kind of completed the story and see what it is. We can go back there, and they still have problems, especially since our girl Yustola is moving on to that, but that's for much later. After we see the lasting changes, we get to talk to Elpis, and I felt like They did a fantastic job, really showing depth, even more depth to that character in such a short time span. We don't hear about him for most of the expansion. We get this one moment, and in 10 minutes of gameplay, they just drop so much shit on our laps that we're like, holy crap.
Yeah, like those, like what 5-10 minute cutscene. I mean, to put it bluntly, I've got 4 notes on it just from that little inclusion.
Yeah,
right there. One of them, granted, is like a in hindsight after we kind of go full circle, but yeah, like a past enemy that has such a positive, and I really do want to stress positive impact on our future as well as the current stance of things.
Yeah,
it was huge. It was really huge.
Hey, what do you think, Ez?
I really like how they treated the character in that they didn't make him overtly friendly towards us. Like, you still killed me. You still fucking you ruined everything, but you know, it's not you that killed Zodiark. Fandaniel kind of forced your hand.
Exactly. He's like, I see what you did, right? I see your intention, but he, like, the way I kind of got the whole story is that he's like, he said it in a manner that if it was my hand in the same perspective, I would have done the same. Like, yeah, I really see that like we're a parallel soul of sorts, but like at the same time, like he wants to help us, like guide us to our star's chance. He, like, I don't know. This might just be pulling at some strings or some loose theories, if you will, but I really feel that Elpis as a whole kind of didn't feel that the Amarosians met the potential that Atheris could meet.
Yeah,
you know, and I really think that him putting his literal last energy into our essence to help us with our goal, I really think that was his last stance to say, I believe you, you know, like I see your goal and I really want to do what I can to help it, you know, just for him to help us find answers.
I disagree. I think Elpis is just like the other Ascians in that he thinks all Ascians are superior to what we have become. He might not feel that way for specifically the Warrior of Light, because we're as close to an Ascian as any of the other Ascians could potentially be.
We have Asms.
Okay, it's all but confirmed. I just want to say that we are, like, basically, the Warrior of Light is an Ascian. Okay,
we're missing. I'm saying we're still fragmented.
Right,
you're right. But Fandaniel is a fragmented Ascian. He's still an Ascian.
Well, no, he's whole.
We're a fragment of Asm, right? And we've been moving inadvertently or advertently towards Asm's actual goal, whether it's our own or Asm's that we do not know, right? We're an Ascian.
Well, I mean, so the term Ascian is, I'm assuming when I think of them, there's the two different ones. There's either the only full Ascians, full beings,
the unsundered,
were Elpis, Emet-Selch, and La Habrea. So we're close to being what that is, but
but
like
not...
Azim, whoever Azim used to be, like, we were sundered with all of the other people. Like, well, it's something we're gonna come to later on, but we did not join Hydaelyn, or who would become Hydaelyn, in that ritual.
Right.
We did not join a whole other theory. I just want to.
We didn't join Zodiark summoning because Azim, or whoever Azim was, disagreed with both. They did not. Their entire thing. It's why they saved the fucking island from.
It feels
so
like
if we're dropping convocation members to be assumed into these the OG summonings, all right. So Hades, aka Emet-Selch, was not part of that.
No.
Hythlodaeus was part of Zodiark's.
Yes.
Let's just think about that for a second. So you're saying the Emet-Selch, right? Not the title Emet-Selch, not the person Hades, right?
Right.
They actively made the choice as a member of the convocation to not join in the summoning of Zodiark.
Didn't believe in it.
No, they did believe in it. They're the ones that summoned Zodiark. The point is that.
But they had the summoners, I thought, were sacrificed with the actual sacrificees.
50%, yeah.
No, they were. I'm assuming. So, like, it's something we see in a cinematic later. We're skipping ahead a bit.
Yeah, we're skipping.
Okay,
but you see,
I guess that might have been.
you see the conversation Emmett Silk is having with Hythlodaeus, where it's like this sad goodbye. It's like, you're going off to die, and I know you're going to die.
Yeah.
And we know that Elidibus was also a part of that. He was the heart of Zodiark.
Yep, right. I know that he willingly signed up to be the heart, and then later
he broke free.
Crazy.
Yep.
But that's why I'm saying, like, we are not the same as Elidibus. He is a full Ascian, whereas we are a fractured one.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. I guess I did. I guess I completely forgot about that Hythlodaeus Emmett Silk.
And I also
I apologize about that.
I also disagree that Azim is having any kind of influence on us outside of whatever reincarnation we keep turning into. We just have that heroic wanderlust.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's our piece of the fragment.
We explicitly do not have his memories.
I specifically feel that Azim as a whole does not specifically 100% uses his power to not imply any will or purpose onto his shards. That I feel that is his like whole mantra, because him being the strongest of the convocation, him being the one leading the convocation, right? Him understanding, well, this is just a stretch, right? That there's a fracture piece of his soul across all these different worlds, right? And him having any lenient towards one way or the other, that could cause turmoil for the greater scale of things. So that's why I really do think, as a member of the convocation, he really does hold a true neutrality.
That's interesting, because it almost feels like we don't, and we're the piece of the soul that just was like, we're going to do our own thing, and we're solely guided by this similar feeling, but not really.
Well, yeah, I think that's actually part of why he's not, or whoever it was Azim before is not, because they acknowledge that we are actively trying to tip the scale.
Yeah.
Like, literally looking back from ARR, Heaven's Ward, Stormblood, Shadowbringers, to now, all of what the Warrior of Light's involvement has been was to tip the scales in the scale to the side of actual justice.
Right.
Not perceived justice, not perceived like actual. Like, let's be like, I could go off on like hours on that.
I mean, I feel like that's kind of eye of the beholder, though, right? Like, because Azim, something I was bringing up about Azim, who he used to be, is that we know Azim was the kind of convocation member that would fuck off to a random island, save its populace from destruction, whereas the convocation was willing to watch them all die.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh yeah, my excuse is I really like their grapes and they don't grow anywhere else. Like, he sounds exactly like us. We have our own sense of justice and what we want to accomplish, and we put our will out there. So I don't know. I just think the big difference between us as a less fragmented being and other Ascians is that Azim has not ever once tried to become like reincarnated. And I don't know if that's because he's actively trying not to be, or if because he died as a part of the Sundering, he joined the live stream.
Yeah.
Like,
and we just assumed it when we were born.
And we just eventually, Azim's character started to become more and more of a thing as more and more worlds were rejoined.
Yeah. I can see that. That actually, that's not too far off with what I think could happen. So that's something to look forward to. They'll probably explain that as we get later on into it, because we're going to do a lot of soul searching in the next couple of patches.
Yeah, I definitely think 6.1 and 6.5 is going to be a whole lot of internal and
I'm excited for it, but at the same time, it just kind of goes all over the place. So
with regards to this whole soul searching thing, we get talking done with Elidibus, and he's like, so this is going to be my last act, and that kind of bums us out. And he's like, I mean, what did you expect? I'm sending you thousands of years into the past.
Yeah,
this is my everything.
Yeah, I can't give you more than this.
Yeah, that weight, that how he explained it, not really somberly, but like, just succinct and just matter of factly. Like, I feel that relayed a really like this might sound weird, but professional point where he's like, he knows that this is like my last act to like really do everything I can for the greater good, and he made us know that, like, no, this was real. Like, now you see the bigger picture. This
Like
is what our
Elizabeth-
bigger picture has been about. you
Yeah,
know?
Elpis, and it's something he told us since the very beginning when he showed us his face back in A Realm Reborn.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like when he came to us as emissary, he had
When we
two
didn't even
missions.
know what the hell to think of the white robe. Let's just
Yeah,
throw that
yeah.
out there. Like, damn.
When we just didn't have a grasp of the entire situation, and his thing is like Zodiark and other Ascian business, first and foremost.
Yeah.
But the salvation of the star is something he also always thought about.
wanted. Yeah.
That's why he helped us. Like, none
Right.
of the other Ascians would do that, but he did do that just to make sure the balance of the star never tipped.
Never tipped, yeah. And that was, it's a very cool, I guess. I don't know what word in particular I want to use to describe it, but it's a cool send-off. It really allows us to kind of close the book on the Elpis character, especially with how long they've been with us. Shadowbringer being so impactful in everything they did in the first with Elpis. Just it was really nice that he could have an anti-hero moment. Is kind of what I was thinking. Where he's still the villain. He's still kind of an asshole, but he does something heroic in exchange to us, which I think is the level of depth that it takes to relate to a character like that and to write it. I just feel like is a really nice touch for a character that we are probably never going to hear about again. Or at least very, very minimally. So very cool way to close that chapter. And that takes us to aesthetically and probably storyline, my favorite zone in all of this fucking expansion.
To be honest
Elpis,
with you,
the world
story,
unsundered.
Oh god, yeah.
So good.
I would say some people may, crucify me for this, but I realistically think this chunk, as we see it, like the Elpis story as it evolves, I really think this is the climax of Endwalker.
Interesting. So the end days,
the question of unknown, the question of what's coming next, the question of what do we do, the question of who do we stop, all of those are answered here, and all of those are then led into more rabbit holes in the next piece. So yeah, I wholeheartedly believe this chunk right now is the climax.
And then so based on that logic, before we dive into Elpis, that would mean that end song or end singer is the falling action, like the it's not the resolution. Obviously, we kill her and Xenos to get to the resolution, but I that would mean that that's the falling action and not the climax.
Yes,
that's crazy because I can see it on both sides.
I mean, we'll get into it again when we get into the next episode too, but I really think that the fact of how many questions were raised in this next chunk really sets the tone.
Sure.
Because they're raising all of these questions that we never even thought about, right?
Right.
Like, who did this? Where is this coming from? You're telling me there's nothing else out there? What the hell is going on? What does that mean we are, right? All of that is led into and then followed through in the closing act.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I might look at this story a little differently now to kind of put myself in your shoes and see it, because like I said, I can see it both ways. So it's definitely something worth pursuing. So we start Elpis, and obviously we get the intro scene where we meet Hythlodaeus, who is tied for my favorite voice actor of this entire expansion. Fantastic. Just really, really love that character. He was my absolute favorite. The other guys coming up, and they're both side characters, but I think the intro with Emmett and Hythlodaeus to get us back on direction, if you will, really liked how Emmett started. Just was like, yeah, I fucking see him, but I really don't want to acknowledge us.
Because at that point, he's like,
he
this
didn't
is one of
understand.
fucking... No, it's like, into him and Hythlodaeus both, this is one of fucking Azim's bullshit tricks, and I'm so tired of it.
And I love that. I think that just gives us even more depth, because we're an embodiment of that soul, so we have portions of that person.
Yep.
And I think that's hysterical to me how they did that, because Emmett is just, we know what Emmett turns into. We know what happens. So it's great to see the early days when he's looking
Still
out for
a
the
bastard.
star.
He's
But
still a bastard.
he's still such a cynical, like, prick, for lack of a better word, and it's fucking hilarious. It makes me laugh every time. Definitely one of my favorite characters by far. But the intro kind of shows us moving into Elpis, and we get to meet Vana, who I'm torn.
Whoa. We meet someone that's one of my favorite characters before that.
Who?
Hermes and Meteon.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, we do meet them first. Okay. Meteon should not be your favorite character. She broke our hearts. All right.
I need you to
Okay.
keep that dirty mouth shut.
I
can't
need
do
to
it.
keep the love alive while the love was there. Okay, we need to think
Nah,
about this when
nah.
we were in this context. All right,
Protect
I love
the
Meet the
precious
Bird
girl.
when I got
Broke my heart.
introduced to Bird Girl. Okay, there was a lot of shit that went down for me to hate Bird Girl. Okay,
Yes. That's exactly it.
Two things, very important. I have a difficult time with anything fantasy story, whatever related, when it's with regards to children. And
Okay.
Meteon hit that nail for me. I was like in the same way that the kid getting turned into a monster and being stepped on hurt me a lot.
Yeah.
I fucking can't stand shit with kids. It
Yeah.
tears me up a lot. So Meteon broke my fucking heart. But it was also like that I need to save her, precious girl. Because and like in the other aspect, Hermes, in my opinion, across the entirety of the game, may be the most relatable character for me.
It's a very good character.
I did not
questioning.
I did not think that they would make Fandaniel or Hermes such a great character in one expansion, but fuck me, they did it.
Yep. And it starts, they really we move into it after Garlemald, and we're hating Fandaniel. We're like, holy fuck,
dude,
this character.
yeah, that's literally what then made me like. I made a specific line in our bro Discord chat, if you will, where I was like, God damn it, why does Hermes have to make me want to give him a hug?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no really better way
You
to
just
say
feel
it.
bad for him.
Daniel is
Yeah.
such a fucking asshole troll that you're like, oh my god, this fucking guy.
Yep.
And then
And then you see
Hermes.
like, oh.
And we immediately sympathize with Hermes because they're killing off these creations one by one
Creations
because of
he's
the
making.
exactly. And it's like this concept of like, oh well, they don't really have souls. And then it's almost like this direct parallel to when Emmett Silk was talking it to us at the end of Shadowbringers 5.0, and he's like, I kill you because I don't view you as being people. You're not really people to me.
Right.
And it's like, it's that exact fucking parallel that I'm like, oh my god. No one, he has a heart.
They
But that leads me to my rationale and to think of like what piece did he lose on being unsundered to the Fandaniel that we know. And to be honest with you, I feel that he wholeheartedly does not have his shard of compassion, and that's why we see his character as unhinged as we do. Like, he's 100% set on his goal. He's 100% set on his ways of thinking. He does not think of anybody around him. He did not think of Xenos around him, other than using him as a tool to gain his outcome to become the new heart of Zodiark.
right.
I'm gonna I'm the voice of detraction here tonight. I disagree because personally, and this is just like, and it's the reason I said last time why I wanted to really talk about Hermes once we got to him.
Yeah.
Because I get nihilism. I've been there. Like, little personal, but like, I don't know if you guys do. I have to take meds for depression. Like,
I have not current, but yeah, I've been there.
But it's like, I get that this person is someone that when he was at the peak of perfection amongst this perfect society, he was still having doubts,
Right.
and depressed and sad all the time. Now break the fucking world and cause the end days and all of this other shit. I can see how over the course of 6,000 years you'd lose your goddamn minds.
Yeah, you'd get there.
It's like, no, I'm done. I think the best state the world can be in is dead and gone.
I don't know, because like, we have a direct and succinct example that is not the only choice or outcome.
Of course not. But
Case
I'm
in
talking
point,
about...
look at Hithadeus, look at Emmett Selk. Emmett Selk more so in this example that you're giving. Like, he had that thought pattern. He had that exact sort of like goal, and yet he did the 180. He completed the cycle. He saw that what we were doing as a shard of one of the originals to actually make the greater good,
But
to
if
make
the
that
shard,
stand.
but the shard that Van Daniel had was always just about taking or breaking things essentially, and Hermes was already feeling that, and I think he started to question why, because of the previous Van Daniel, the seat that he's potentially going to take. He doesn't understand why that Van Daniel is ready to go so quickly, because he's questioning the morality of life and kind of what that impacts, especially since his creations are being pulled apart when they're not 100% what they want. Or
I mean, I think
it's
that's
got to
just,
be perfection or nothing. Yeah,
Right.
I think that's just the
Wow.
strength of the 14 characters.
Yes.
It's like you can have these separate immortal beings and have them all have different distinct personalities and view on how to do things. La Brea was fucking crazy when we met him and dealt with him.
That's true.
Yeah,
He's like,
that makes
"Fuck
me think,
you,
like, now that we've
Island."
seen pure Asians and he's still touted as a pure Asian, that makes me ask some questions, to be blunt.
But that's what I'm saying, is like, that's what I appreciate about the Hermes Van Daniel kind of like mirror. You see one of these perfect beings that we've always been touted to as being the perfect beings, and he's sad.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't want to kill these things, even if they're not perfect. I don't think that's a reason to kill them.
Right.
That doesn't seem justifiable to me.
Yeah, he was questioning, and he had been, I forget what the term they used, but he had been the creator of the area that he was in charge of for so long and had been making so many perfections. It was very, to have that person who's at the top of their craft questioning the meaning of why is he even doing this is nuts, and that could really, I can understand why you would have that kind of imbalance a little bit in your life and questioning to figure out. And then he uses Dynamis to create Medion.
Oh, dude, that right there is like his magnus opum, right? But it is also the last nail in the coffin. He literally, like, let's break this down, like, taking a step back, right? He used an emotional building block, right? Dynamis, to build a life form, okay? That one, he is not of that type of building block, okay? He built a different life form based on a different understanding, and yet he worked his entire time working with this life form to understand it. Right. He doomed us all because of that. He was literally trying to work on understanding something that on a fundamental level he could not understand.
It wasn't even like that doomed us all. It was because he posed a question to them that they couldn't answer. It was too broad. What is the meaning of life?
Well,
and when you send, and it's something like, so we find out that Medion is not a singular being. Medion is a hive
Sisters.
mind. Yeah, it is. We find out that he made
crazy.
Hundreds of these things, and he's sent them out into the depths of the stars.
Yep. They say hundreds, but I think it's really hundreds of thousands, to be honest.
I mean, we see by the end
they don't split on their own.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
but man, we see by the end
there are so many of them.
You see by the end.
Yeah, when Insinger shows up, they all.
Dude, that was insane. Oh man, we'll get to that, but like, I just want to say that made my jaw drop.
The point is that he posed the question to them: "Go find the meaning of life."
Yeah,
and then Emmett Silk is the one that like turns to him, is like, "What if they find out the meaning of life isn't good?"
Right.
What if they come across nothing but death and despair? And that's exactly what fucking happens.
Yep. So the two things that I want to point out, one is I've been pronouncing a popular yogurt brand incorrectly for years. It's not oikos, it's oikos, which they tell us because, so one of the third aetheryte shard that you attune to in Elpis is, I think it's Proetin oikos, and they say it out loud. So that was the first thing, and at that moment I realized I need to be checking how many of these other words are of Greek origin. So I looked up entelechy because they put it in quotations when Medion said she was an entelechy. And I put this in our Discord the other day. I watched Bellular's video and he actually talks about this, so I'm upset he kind of beat us to the punch. But entelechy in Greek means the realization of potential. And it's very interesting to me to see that, because what Medion not only is being made of Dynamis, but what she becomes. And that blew my fucking mind, because that's fantastic. Like, holy crap, the realization of potential is through an ether that we don't know. Like, it was referenced in the great work when we did the Nidhana, the first part of the subline, as Akasha, and people knew about it, but they didn't know how to tap into it. And that it just blows my mind that power source, if you will, is the realization of potential, and that's what Medion turns into. That's the realization, and we beat potential. Obviously that's for the next one, but it was intense to kind of see this story come together after learning the meaning of that word.
Dude.
That's why my heart broke so much, and that's why I can't forgive Medion, is because of like what she embodies and what she turns into, especially after you do the dungeon that's from Elpis.
Well, before we get into the dungeon particulars, there's one other person that you mentioned before that we encounter on our adventure.
Before we shift away from Meteon, I do want to jump in there. I'm sorry, E, but like I did not actually think about or even realize that was what the meaning of what their type of organism was, and like, holy shit, really thinking about that more and like kind of bringing that full circle to see what we know, like.
Changes perspective.
The culmination of our potential is derived down to our emotion.
Yeah,
it's why I felt so bad.
Holy
for
shit, that's
Elpis
wild,
Medion,
man!
Right?
Like, Elpis version.
Elpis Medion is a singular. Like we are attached to her, but then the rest of the hive mind connects, and all of them are fucked.
Right.
So
they've already seen all the shit.
It corrupts her because they're like one being. And that's why, regardless of how you two assholes feel about her, I felt bad.
Well, what sucks is, like, you think about how quickly that story evolves, and what happens when essentially Medion goes away. At this point, all the other Medions have already hit other worlds and explored them and seen and answered the question that they've had to have. So how long has Medion been alive and people not known? Because if you remember, through the entire storyline, she's not registered.
I think we find
she's just been literally a conduit, just gathering energy all this time, basically.
Yeah.
I think we find out through the story. I believe they said 108 cycles. So
Jesus, 108
either 108 years or 108 like months.
Yeah.
I don't know what they mean by cycles, but it's been a long time.
Yeah. So they've already been able to see things. I know who you were going to bring up, E, and that is Vana. And
AKA Hydaelyn.
Hydaelyn. It's great to see her not be Hydaelyn.
And we find out, huge drop, that she was our teacher. She was the previous Azim.
Yep. Which is crazy to me, because they talked about how most people who leave the convocation end up passing on, if you will. And they said only a few choose not to, and she was one of them.
Well, also to that point, knowing that each Azim, or each title, let's just throw this out there, passes on the memories of said title to the next.
Yeah.
Who's to say that we don't know things of Vanat that she is not relaying to us, that we just take as quote-unquote fact? You know?
I'm going to throw this out there. I don't know if that's how the crystals work, or the titles. We know that happens with regards to what we know versus like... So, with Fandaniel, that happens because Fandaniel was a fragmented being. That he was not a part of the summoning, and it's not that he's getting the memories of every single Fandaniel, it's that he's getting the memories of every single fragmented part of Fandaniel from Hermes down.
Right.
So it's not that he's remembering every past Fandaniel, it's that every single Fandaniel that's born after Hermes is a fragmented version of Hermes.
Of Hermes itself, yeah.
Yeah.
And they pick up the piece of his memories through that past, which, you know, that in turn, Hydaelyn, Vana passing Azim down to, or eventually we
like
get
in the same regard. That's why we were able to merge with Ardbert in Shadowbringers.
Right.
It's not that we're different versions of Azim. It's that we're both a part of the same whole.
Yeah.
We're both whoever Vana trained. were part of that ASM.
Which is fantastic. And I really liked being able to figure out who Heidelin was before she was Heidelin. And just kind of the character development that kind of went into that, especially as we progress over Elpis, but as well as the cutscenes they show us of when she decides to become Heidelin. And
that
fucking
Christ. Is amazing.
It was so good. It was seriously so good. There's one phrase or one line
man.
that
and
like
the song,
I needed
the fucking
to
song.
all caps, and she says nothing is impossible.
Yep.
Like that, I was just like, dude.
I got fucking chills when it was her versus all of the members praying to Zodiark.
Right.
And she's like, I am going to fucking cut your wings and you will walk.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's like, so it's not that we were necessarily wrong about Heidelin being a massive bitch.
Right.
It's that was all on purpose.
It was also
because
directed for positivity.
It was intended, and it was a means to like not cull the weak, but actually cull the strong. Like we were literally becoming too powerful, you know.
It was like you have to be able to interact with Dynamis. You cannot do that as etheric beings.
Right.
So fragmented. 2, you can't deal with suffering. Because, like, that's the whole thing she was exposed to. The summoning of Zodiark, all of the followers of Zodiark. Right. Every single one of their intentions was to rebuild the quote-unquote perfect world they had. Mm-hmm. Where in reality, we see through the eyes of Hermes, who is miserable the entire time and created Medion in the hive mind, that that's just not true.
Right.
That Medion would not exist if they had a perfect world.
True.
They wouldn't be in the final days if the world was perfect, but because of their hubris, they were going to die eventually. If they stayed the course and did what they were going to do and brought all of their people back from Zodiark, they would have just died again anyway.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I am going to fragment you into a bunch of lesser beings that can interact with Dynamis.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put you through hell and make you suffer so that when the day comes, you can handle suffering.
Right. You can live up to it, and you have the strength and fortitude.
And the entire time, the song is like answering the question, and favorite moment.
Yeah, that song is by far one of the best synchronized moments that they've been able to pull off in game. It really just hits on so many different levels, and it's one of those things where I don't know if the time of day really affected me, but at 5 a.m, when you see that and you're just waking up and that's what you get, you're like, holy fuck, this is wow. Because that's what happened to me, and it was pretty intense. And
but it's like that whole scene is like, this is it. We finally know. This is why Heidelin did what she did
and chose us. So and that. But before we get to that point, we have the dungeon that comes out of there with Hermes kind of losing it towards the end. We go towards
he wants to know.
Mind erase thing.
Yeah, Emmett Silk's like, we need to fucking kill that thing or trap that thing now and figure out what's going on. And Hermes is like, no, I want the answer. Yeah. I don't care if it's doom and gloom and destruction and death. I want to know the fucking answer.
Yeah. She or Hermes absolutely needed it, and so we chase Medion into that area, and the cutscene after you finish that dungeon, which the dungeon is just okay. I don't think it's bad. It's not one of the more memorable ones. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
I think it would be my favorite one in the story so far. It's not my favorite one, but in the story, like chronologically so far, it's my favorite one. I think it's stronger mechanic wise, and it's fun because it's doing things we haven't seen before. Like there's a snakehead boss that divides the arena depending on its orientation into 3 quadrants, and that I like that. That's cool. I've never seen that.
And the heads, they puff up as well to show that they've got it's like flame or something like that. But so it's good. It's just to me, it's not it doesn't stand out to me.
Quick thing. Do either of you know that the last boss has a thing you can interrupt so he doesn't get buffed?
No.
What?
Yes! I knew it! I fucking was like, I was doing it with the trust, and I was like, wait a minute, that's a blinky bar. I can interrupt that. You can interrupt his self-buff.
Wait a second. Let's take this back a step. E. You were doing this with a trust?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. The only things I did not do with the trust were 2 of the trials.
Right. I mean, the 2 that you can't use the trust on.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I do it because story.
Yeah.
So. I get to go through a dungeon with Emmett Silk. Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
okay.
fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is fair. You're right. Rolling with Emmett. Yep.
Yeah. It was pretty good. And so the cutscene that comes afterwards, that the moments where Hythlodaeus, I've always been into archery. It's one of my things. So when Hythlodaeus does that, and kind of like they play the whole, oh, we're fucking with you thing. You're an idiot. It's actually over here.
And that's
trick Hermes.
That was so cool because like they went with that plan under the assumption that our dumbass would take the blow for Hythlodaeus and be knocked off.
Right.
Because they're like, of course he would. He's Azim.
Yeah.
Of course he would.
We get it.
The point that Hythlodaeus is like, come on, you think I could have the power to break a focal point like that?
Yeah.
Like, that was like, you son of a bitch.
So funny. Yeah, just so funny. And then like they culminate Emmett Selk's previous final story, if you will. Like we already know how he finishes, but we get a new version of him. And just kind of like how he sends us off a little bit, and his little douchey snap is still one of my favorite things because it's just so ridiculous. Like, I'm just,
and then we
the fuck out of me.
Yeah, we come full circle, close the timelines.
Yeah,
all Hermes, Emmett Silk, and Hythlodaeus all have their memories wiped,
right?
Because of Hermes' finest spell.
Yeah.
So the only people that remember us are like side characters that we barely interacted with, and Vana.
Yep.
Yeah.
And speaking of Vana, and then going into this might be, I don't think this is actually jumping too much, but I'll come back to it. But then seeing the representation of her struggle at the end, oh my god.
With the cutscene?
Yeah, that was rough, dude.
That especially ties it in after you finish that dungeon. You see that cutscene and kind of you and Vana wrapping shit up downstairs and like, oh yeah, I don't know, my memory's gone, and they know their memory's gone, but they obviously don't know what happened in that time. Is great because Vana shows it's like we're not going to change the course of history. We're going to not necessarily let this happen, but we're going to prepare for it to happen instead of trying to completely change the timeline, which is, time travel gets wonky, and if you fucking detail
they save their own ass with regards to that because they're like Emmett Silk and like as they're carrying themselves out of the dungeon and they're like, what just happened? Hythlodaeus is all like, well, it's fine, we'll remember eventually when our souls return to the live stream.
We'll get back to the ethereal sea, which
they
bring full circle, which was fucking amazing for the record.
And then Emmett Silk is like, cool, great, that'll be wonderful in like 1,000 years.
Yeah, cool. I'll deal with it then. I gotta wait. No, go ahead, Knox.
I was just gonna say I seriously had a good laugh at that. I had to pause for a moment because I'm just like, oh man, he's gonna know so much more too. Like he's gonna know like all of which like what was come to be, if you will, and like
and he wasn't believing in the whole "you're from the future" bullshit the whole time. So it was very, very interesting. What we do need to talk about next though is wrapping up the episode. So thank you so much, guys. That's going to be the end of part 2. Sorry to leave you on a cliffhanger like that. We will get into part 3 and finish up the series, if you will, of recapping Endwalker. Come next episode, we might have a little special one tomorrow. Let's check the schedules after this, boys. But that's going to be it for Best in Slot Radio, episode 8, Endwalker part 2. Final closing thoughts on anything we just talked about. As go.
Hermes was genuinely a character I was not expecting to be as attached to as I am, being a little nihilistic and resonating with a lot of his viewpoints. But at the same time, you don't get to fucking kill an entire world because you're sad, homie. Like, come on.
True story. Knox?
I would say I didn't think that I would grow closer to Emmett Selk, knowing how the end of Shadowbringers went as it did, but even more so, I didn't think that I would reflect more so into the Warrior of Light or me, the playable character, as much as I did as the climax, and even at where we're at now has led to.
Yeah, That's a very good point. I think for me, the final closing is looking up words that are new to you in this game can lead you to a completely different perspective, and finding out what entelechy's mean and how the Medion story went, because I learned right after she said it what it was, really changed how I view that area, which is why Elpis is my absolute favorite zone. So that's going to finish us off for this evening. If you watch us on YouTube, thank you so much. Do the YouTube stuff. Like, subscribe, dislike. Share it with your friends. We don't really care. Wherever you get your podcasts, unless you're on Pandora, which at that point you need to change. Make sure that you guys check us out next week. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening. For all of us here at Best in Slot Radio, I'm DTG.
I'm Ez.
And I'm Knox.
As D said, words, look them up.
Look them up. Take care, everybody. Peace.
Peace.
See ya.